Brooklyn used to be loud, alive, corner stores, basketball courts, music in the streets. Now it's just groans, screams, and the sound of my own footsteps running for my life. I'm Jason, and this is how it all went to hell. It started on a Tuesday. Funny how the world can fall apart midweek, like it's just another errand on a to-do list. One moment I was stepping out of the bodega on Flatbush in church, and the next, I was watching a man biting to a cop's throat like it was a chopped cheese. I froze, paper bag in hand, still feeling the heat from the aluminum foil wrapped around my breakfast sandwich. The cop didn't scream long, just a gurgle, a twitch, and then dead weight. People ran, screamed. Some pulled out phones. I backed up slow, heart punching my ribs like it was trying to escape first. Then the thing looked up, jaw soaked in blood, pupils melted. He rushed a woman in a bonnet who didn't move quick enough. Tore her shoulder open. It was chaos. I dropped the bag and ran. Every block felt like it was shifting under me. The streets I knew, all my life, Rogers Avenue, East 18, down to Ward, Newkirch, none of them felt safe anymore. And I saw more of them. Regular people, once. Now limping, twitching, growling things. A delivery guy, half-eaten on his bike. A teacher I recognized from PS 269 chasing her own student. A homeless man tearing into a pigeon like it owed him money. I ducked into a corner store near Beverly, already locked from the inside. Banged once, twice. No answer. Behind me, one of those things. Jaw Messing spotted me. The sound he made wasn't human. I took off, hurtling a trash can, nearly twisting my ankle on a cracked sidewalk. My chest burned. Made it to a bus Q35, empty and parked sideways on the street, like the driver tried to block off traffic. I yanked the doors open and climbed in. The stench hit me first. Blood. Gasoline. Something rotting. 3 bodies slumped in the back, unmoving. But I didn't trust that. I grabbed a metal pipe off the floor and edged closer. They didn't move, until one did. I swung the pipe on instinct. Cracked the side of its head. Again. Blood sprayed the seat, my sneakers. The other 2 woke up jerking like broken puppets. I backed down the aisle and jumped off the bus. One tripped over the fare box. The other slammed face first into the windshield trying to follow me. Glass cracked, but hell, I didn't stop running. Tried my mom's phone, no signal. Everyone around me had vanished. It was like the city blinked and got hollow. Sirens in the distance, but no help, just noise. Cut through the alley between Flatbush and Ocean. Bad idea. There were 3 of them. Maybe more in the shadows. A woman dragging her foot like it was disconnected from her body. A tall man in scrubs missing half his face. A teenager, still in school uniform, intestines dangling like party streamers. I didn't wait. I swung the pipe at the first one, caught her temple. She dropped out. The man lunged. I sidestepped, hit him in the spine. He groaned. No, growled, kept coming. I kicked his leg out and crushed his head with the pipe until it was mush. By the time I turned, the kid was already on me. Claws in my hoodie, breath like sewage. We fell, rolled, knocked over a trash bin. He bit down but caught the shoulder strap of my bag. I used my knee, pushed him off, and smashed his head on the pavement. Panting, bleeding. Shaken, I looked around. Nothing moved. This was Brooklyn now. Not the borough I grew up in. Not the place where stooped kids cracked jokes and played dominoes till 2 a.m. This was hell in a fitted cap. I knew I couldn't stay on foot. Needed higher ground, better vision. I sprinted toward the subway stairs on Church Avenue, but they were packed. Not with people, things, dead things. Dozens of them, crawling up from the darkness, hands reaching, teeth snapping. Nah, underground was a trap. I backed out slow, then turned and ran again. Past bodegas being looted, Dot past people on fire, past a man standing on his rooftop yelling prayers through a megaphone. This wasn't an accident. This was an invasion, and I had no idea how far it reached. But I knew one thing for sure: if there was any chance of survival, I had to find other people. Fighters, survivors, and I had to keep moving, because the moment you stop in Brooklyn now, you die. I didn't sleep, not even for a second. After that sprint through the alley, I found a busted fire escape ladder and hauled myself up. My legs burned, lungs screamed, but I didn't stop until I hit the roof. Brooklyn's skyline never looked so dead. Blackened buildings, distant screams, smoke rising like it was signaling something worse was coming. And maybe it was. The roof belonged to an old row house, maybe 4 stories high. I crawled behind an HVAC unit, tucked the bat beside me, and stared into the nothing. No choppers, no sirens, just silence. And that silence screamed louder than anything else. Morning light crept in slowly, casting this orange haze over the city. I stood, stretching sore limbs, and peered over the ledge. That's when I saw her. 2 buildings down, a woman was on another roof, maybe early 30s, light brown skin, wearing a bright orange hoodie that made her stand out like a target. She was trying to flag someone, maybe, or anyone who could help. She didn't know the streets were crawling. I waved my hands cautiously. She pointed toward the edge of her building and then toward a wooden plank connecting our roofs. It was janky, old, narrow, warped, but it was the only option. I strapped my bag tight, gripped the bat, and walked to the edge. The plank creaked like hell. Halfway across, I froze. Down below, a group of roamers, maybe 10, were feasting on a couple laid out on the sidewalk. Blood pooled around them, dripping into the gutter. One of the zombies peeled away, looked up like it sensed me. I held my breath. The plank dipped. My boot slipped slightly, but I caught myself. One more step, another. Then I felt her hands grab my arms, pulling me onto a rooftop. "You good?" she asked, panting. "I'm Jason," I muttered, trying to sound calmer than I felt. "Raina," she said, "we gotta keep moving. They've been circling this block for hours. If they catch scent, we're boxed in." I looked around. The rooftop she was on had a rusted metal door, probably led into the building, but no telling what was waiting inside. We debated it for too long. That's when the groans started echoing again, this time from below us. I peeked over the edge. The roamers had scattered, but not aimlessly. One was looking straight at us. Its neck was twisted, jaw unhinged, blood soaked into its shirt like it had been feeding non-stop. It screamed more of a screech, really, and suddenly they were swarming. Raina pulled at the rusted door. Locked. She bashed it with a nearby brick. Still no good. I stepped in, raised the bat, and slammed it against the knob until it gave way. The door creaked open, revealing a stairwell cloaked in shadows. "We go down," I said. Fast we didn't argue. Not in moments like this. Inside, the stairwell smelled like mildew and rot. We took each step slow until we reached the 3rd floor. A scream. Not ours inside the building. Raina raised her hand, signaling me to stop. She crept forward, peeking into one of the hallways. A teenage boy, maybe 15, was trapped behind a glass door, pounding it with both fists while 2 roamers clawed at the other side. "Help me," he shouted, muffled through the glass. Raina looked at me, thought I didn't hesitate. I charged forward, swung the bat at the first zombie's head. The second turned, arms outstretched. I smashed its kneecap, dropped it, then crushed the skull. Raina rushed over and unlatched the boy's door. "Thank you," he sobbed. "We gotta move," I said. "Where's the exit?" "Backstairs," he said. "This way." We ran. The lower we went, the louder the sounds became. Scratch and Dot moaning. That constant, sickening shuffle of the infected. First floor was pitch black. We stopped, listened. Raina clicked on a small flashlight, low beam. The beam caught the glint of eyes, 4 of them. 2 roamers by the exit. They didn't charge. Not until the light hit them. "Run," I shouted. We barreled through the hall, the kids screaming, Raina holding the door open as I tapped on it and smashed my bat over and over until the skull collapsed like a busted watermelon. We burst into the street. No time to breathe. More roamers, coming from both sides. The sun was higher now, casting long, eerie shadows. "Left," I yelled. We dashed into an alley and got another chase. I used to cut through Gates Avenue every day to get to work. Today I had to crawl under a flipped MTA bus while a zombie gnawed at a windshield 5 feet above me. The streets were dead, no traffic. No voices, just the rustle of garbage in the wind and the hungry groans echoing off brownstone walls. Brooklyn wasn't Brooklyn anymore. It was a war, and I was one of the last ones still moving. I slipped out from under the bus and sprinted into the middle of the street. A burning bodega cast a hellish glow across the block. Broken glass everywhere. A sneaker still smoking from whatever happened inside. I didn't stop to think about it. A zombie came barreling out of a laundromat, jaws open, shirt soaked in blood like it had just been feeding. I swung my silver bat as hard as I could crack. Sent that thing spinning into a row of parked bikes. I didn't even look twice, I just kept moving. I heard gunshots somewhere over near Nostrand. A short burst, then silence. I wasn't alone. I ducked into a corner deli with the front gate half pulled. The bell still worked, loud enough to give away my spot, but I needed a cover. I pressed my back against the beer fridge and caught my breath. Inside smelled like old onions and copper. Somebody died here recently. I could feel it. That's when I saw the feet. A pair of boots behind the counter. "Yo," I called out softly. "You good?" No answer. I crept forward, gripping the bat tighter. The boots moved. Then I heard a snarl. The clerk was still here, just not human anymore. She jumped up over the counter, teeth yellow and cracked, eyes clouded like marbles. I didn't have room to swing. I shoved a rack of gum into her path and ran out the back. She gave chase, slamming into the alley wall trying to follow me. Her fingers clawed at the air, but I didn't stop running. I made it 2 blocks before I heard it screaming. Not a zombie, a person. It came from the rooftop of a brownstone across the street. I looked up and saw her, a girl in a red hoodie, cornered by 2 walkers. She was trapped on the edge of the building, nowhere to run. "Hey," I shouted. "Down here." The zombies turned. I picked up a brick and chucked it at one I had missed, but it was enough. They started climbing down the fire escape toward me. "Jump," I yelled. She hesitated, eyes wide. "Jump now." "I got you." She didn't think, she just leaped. I caught her enough to break her fall, but we both hit the ground hard. She scrambled to her feet before I could and yanked me up. "Thanks," she gasped. I thought I was done. "You still might be," I said. "They're still coming." We took off down the block together. Her name was Jada. She said she'd been on her roof for 2 days, watching the streets rot from above. Her parents were gone. Her phone died yesterday. She hadn't eaten since Friday. Now she was running through hell with me. We ducked into an abandoned laundromat, the same one the earlier zombie came out of. It was trashed and side clothes everywhere. The spin machines ripped open like someone was looting detergent during the end of the world. Jada locked the door behind us while I flipped the table for cover. "Where are you heading?" she asked. "South, I heard Atlanta's got a safe zone." She laughed bitterly. "That's a long way from here. I got legs in now. You got him too." We sat in silence for a second. Then we heard the shuffle of feet. Not just one, many. Dozens. Jada looked at me with panic in her eyes. "How many?" I peered through the boarded window. "Too many." The herd was moving down the block, maybe 40 strong. Walkers in hoodies, kids in school uniforms, even an old guy in a Mets jacket. I knew that block. That was Mr. Tony. He used to give me quarters for the arcade when I was 10. Now, he's dragging one foot and growling like a beast. I looked down at my silver bat, bloodied but strong. "Let's make a run for it," I said. Jada nodded. We kicked out the back door and bolted into the alley, hearts pounding, legs burning, and just like that we were back in the game. We barely made it out the alley before the herd poured around the corner. Jada tripped on a pile of loose bricks, but I yanked her up by the arm and we kept moving. My lungs burned out, my legs felt like wet cement. But adrenaline, that was pumping hard. We cut across Myrtle Avenue. A rotting city bus lay sideways in the middle of the street, its emergency hatch open like a busted mouth. 2 zombies clawed out of it as we passed, falling to the pavement with bone-snapping thuds. One of them started to crawl. Jada booted it in the jaw and didn't stop running. A few blocks up, we found a UPS truck turned on its side. The back was open. We slid into it and slammed the door shut behind us, ducking low in the dark. Silence, then groaning outside. One of them was sniffing the air like a bloodhound. Jada looked at me wide-eyed and mouthed, "What do we do?" I held a finger to my lips and pulled my bat close, ready to swing if that thing found the door. But after a few agonizing minutes, the sounds faded. We waited another 5 dot. Then I slowly cracked the back open. Clear dot weed climbed out just as the sky started to shift. Pinkish gray clouds streaking over the Brooklyn skyline. It was almost dawn, but it felt like midnight in my bones. "We need weapons," I said. Jada nodded. "There's a pawn shop on Fulton, a few blocks east. If it ain't ransacked, we might find something." We moved fast and low, sticking to shadows, ducking between parked cars and busted storefronts. We passed a Walgreens that looked like it got firebombed. A dead body hung from the exit sign half a ton, swinging like a meat locker ornament. When we reached the pawn shop, the gate was halfway down. Jada squeezed under while I forced it the rest of the way with a grunt. Inside was a mess. Glass everywhere. Shelves flipped, but the wall with the locked weapons case still intact. She found a crowbar behind the counter. I found a sledgehammer under her desk. We gotta work. 10 loud minutes later, the case popped. Inside, 2 pistols, a box of ammo, and a machete. Christmas. I tossed Jada a pistol and a machete. I kept the other pistol tucked in my waistband and stuck with my bat for now. I didn't trust myself not to waste bullets. We reloaded fast and got out even faster. That's when we heard it, screaming. From the roof of a Chinese takeout 2 blocks down, we looked at each other. Again, we sprinted toward it. A guy in a blood-soaked hoodie was swinging a plank at 3 zombies that had him cornered on the fire escape. He saw us and started yelling louder. "No shot from here," I called. "I'll go up," Jada said, already climbing the opposite fire escape. She moved quick. I gave cover from below, waving my arms and shouting at the zombies. 2 turned toward me, died. 1 took a step too close. Bang. First bullet I fired since this all started. It hit the walker right in the throat. It didn't die, but it fell. The second one was faster. Came down the steps like it knew who I was. I didn't shoot this time. I swung the bat. Crack. Caved in his temple with 1 clean hit. Above me, Jada had reached the rooftop. She jabbed the machete through the head of the last one near the survivor. It dropped without a sound. The guy dropped to his knees, sobbing. I jogged up to meet him. His name was Eli. He used to be a teacher. Lived around the corner. Watched his wife get torn up trying to save a kid from a walker in Fort Greene Park. He'd been alone for days. "We gotta move," I said. He grabbed the plank and followed. We moved as a trio now, through the skeletal shell of Brooklyn, where every corner stank of death and every shadow could mean your last breath. At Marcy Projects, we had to crawl through a broken fence. One of the infected spotted us from a balcony and screamed. More of them poured out the buildings like roaches in fire. We fired off every round we had. I took out 5 before my pistol clicked empty. Jada sliced another in half. Eli swung that plank like a madman. We didn't kill them all, but we survived. Barely. By the time we made it to a service tunnel that led toward the river, we were out of ammo, out of breath, and almost out of hope. But we weren't out of fight. Not yet. The tunnel smelled like piss and gasoline. I led the way with my silver bat, flashlight taped to the handle, casting shaky shadows against the walls. Jada and Eli followed close, breathing heavy but silent. Every sound echoed. Every step felt like we were announcing our location to every hungry corpse in a 10-mile radius. This used to run power cables under the old subway, Eli whispered. Now it's just Rat City. Nah, Dot, not just rats. Something scraped against metal ahead. We froze. Jada raised her machete. I clicked off the flashlight and dropped to one knee. Silence. Then dash. SHHH. SKRT. Crunch. A walker, dragging its feet through broken glass. I flipped the light back on, quick and sharp, and there it was. A decaying mail carrier, still in uniform, mouth gnashing like it had mail to deliver to hell. His fingers were worn to bone from clawing at the concrete. It rushed us. I stepped forward. Batman's skull. The crunch was disgusting. It dropped. We kept moving. The tunnel opened up into a side station, some abandoned maintenance platform that hadn't seen life since the 80s. Dead generators, rusted lockers, yellowed posters peeling off the walls. In the corner, a cot. Someone had been living down here, and judging by the smell, they still were, or at least they had been. We swept the area fast. No one. Just more old food cans and half-burned candles. I dropped onto the cot for just a second. Eli scavenged through a locker and pulled out a flare gun. Jada found a crowbar and some loose wiring. You think this leads to the river? She asked. I nodded. Has to. But if we're wrong, we're trapped. That's when we heard the moaning. Low guttural. And close. I turned. The far door, one we hadn't checked, was open just a crack, and through that crack came through rotting fingers, gripping the edge. Jada didn't wait. She kicked the door full open. 3 walkers stumbled through. A little girl in a blood-stained ballet uniform. A half-naked man with no jaw, and something that used to be a cop, its vest still clinging to its ribs. I went for the dancer first, one clean swing. The bat split her face, and I hated how small her body felt hitting the ground. Jada handled the cop, drove her machete into its eye and twisted. Eli froze. The jawless man came for him. Move, I shouted. He didn't. I barreled forward and tackled the thing off him, smashing it against the locker. It thrashed out, bit the air like it wanted to eat the sound of me. I pinned it and bashed its head until it stopped moving. Eli was shaking, eyes wide. I never... You freeze again, you die, Jada snapped. You ain't got that luxury no more. We didn't argue, just kept going. The tunnel sloped downward. We started to smell salt, water. We were closed out. At the end was a metal grate, bent inward like something escaped through it, not the other way around. We squeezed through and came out into a storm drain under the beak. The morning sun was just starting to leak through the cracks above. You could hear the hum of the city. Not traffic, not people. Just moaning, moaning, and birds that hadn't learned yet the world ended. I climbed a slick embankment and peeked through a drainage pipe that opened toward the East River. What I saw made my stomach twist. A ferry, floating, untouched, still moored at a busted dock just past Domino Park. And next to it, dozens of walkers, pacing, waiting, guarding it like some twisted prize. That's our ride, I whispered. To where? Jada asked. Manhattan. Maybe from there. Atlanta. Eli laughed. dry and humorless. If we make it to Manhattan, I'll believe in God again. We ducked back into the shadows. I looked at my bad dot, then at the ferry. We were gonna need a miracle, or a lot more bullets. We waited until the sun was just high enough to bake the stink off the water. The ferry sat like a ghost, bobbing gentle, untouched. The dock leading to it looked chewed up, warped from rot and fire. Walkers swarmed the area like they knew it was valuable. They didn't guard things, not normally. But this felt different, that Eli counted. 14 dot, maybe 15. Some in the ferry too. Too many, Jada muttered, checking the edge on her machete. I tightened the tape on my bat handle. Then we thinned the crowd. We crept through an alley behind an old food truck lot. We moved low, slow, careful not to knock anything over. I caught a glimpse of a half-eaten pretzel on the ground and almost laughed. New York used to be flavored. No, it was just blood and echoes. We took position behind a rusted-out van. That's when I heard the crying. Not moaning, not crying. Yo, I held up a fist. It came from a nearby playground, just beyond the broken gate, hidden under the remnants of a jungle gym. A little boy sat alone. Couldn't be older than 5. Filthy face. Red hoodie. Holding something tight in his arms. I blinked. Was that a stuffed dog? Jada. I nodded toward him. Shh, she whispered. Eli looked like he wanted to run. He's bait. Gotta be. Something's wrong. He wasn't wrong. Behind the boy, creeping slow like a nightmare learning how to hunt, came a zombie, dressed like a crossing guard, face half missing, one shoe flopping off. It was almost on him. I didn't think I moved. Charged through the gate. The kid looked up, thought the walker growled. I met it halfway, at first. Crack took his knee out. It dropped. Another swing took its head halfway off. One more and it was still. Come here, little man, I whispered, crouching. He didn't move. Just looked at me like I was another monster. Name's Jason. I ain't gonna hurt you. I'm trying to get you safe, alright? Jada came up behind, arms open. We got you. He finally moved. Slow, like his legs forgot how. He clutched the stuffed dog tighter than anything I ever held. We got him back to the alley. Eli hissed. What the hell, man? Kid's alive. And now we're screwed. He wasn't wrong again. The growl came from behind the van. Then another. They were closer than we thought. Jada spun, machete up. Go loud. I nodded. Eli raised the flare gun. P. Red light arced through the air and slammed into the side of a walker, lighting it up like a damn torch. The moan surged. I rushed forward, bat swinging. One down, dot 2. A third grabbed my arm and tried to bite. I twisted, slammed it into the dock post and brought my bat down over and over till my arms burned. Jada took 3 in a row, carving through necks like a blender. Eli emptied the flare gun and grabbed the tire iron from the van. The boy hid behind the wheel, hugging his dog. Then the worst one came, bigger than the others. Shirtless, eyes gone white, tongue dangling out of its mouth like it had been screaming since the outbreak. It charged like a linebacker. I braced. Too late. It slammed me into the dock rail. The breath left my lungs. It snapped its jaws, inches from my face. My bat was gone. I headbutted it twice. Still didn't stop. Then blank. Its head exploded. Jada stood behind it holding a sawed-off I didn't even know she had. I slumped to my knees. Thanks. Next time, the walkers were thinning, but more were coming. Their moans had called reinforcements. Eli grabbed the kid. Now or never. We made a break for the ferry. Ran full sprint, Jason in front. Jada covering me, dragging the bat like it owed me money. We hit the dock, slipping on algae and blood. I turned and smashed one last walker off the edge, its body hitting the rocks below with a wet thud. Eli jumped on board, boy in his arms. Jada helped me up the ramp. We were in. We closed the hatch. Silence. Well, silence except for the boy crying again. I sat down on a bench, drenched in sweat and something else's blood. "You good?" Jada asked. I nodded, looking at the stuffed dog the kid still held. It had one eye missing, just like this world. We floated down the East River like ghosts with blood on our hands. The ferry creaked with every wave, like it was remembering better days. Days when it carried tourists instead of 3. Half-dead New Yorkers and a traumatized kid. I sat in the captain's chair, hands still shaking. My bat leaned beside me, stained deep marooned. Jada stood by the door, watching the shoreline slip by like a movie we couldn't pause. Eli was cradling the boy like he was glass. We didn't know his name. He hadn't said a word since the playground. We didn't push it. Sometimes silence was the only thing that made sense in this world. The ferry engine coughed and sputtered, and I looked back at the console like I knew what I was doing. "I don't think we'll make it to Dumbo," Jada asked. "If this rust bucket holds." She laughed once, dry and broken. Famous last words. We passed under the Williamsburg Bridge. The supports were covered in vines, smoke stains, and seagulls that didn't seem to give a damn. One of them landed on the railing next to us, stared right at me, then flew off. I hated how normal it felt. Then I saw the oil slick in the water. Thick clack, shimmering like a wound. "Something's leaking," I muttered. Eli looked up. "You smell that?" "Gasoline, a lot of it." Jada cursed under her breath. We rounded a bend in the river, and that's when we saw the smoke. The ferry dock ahead was already burning. We pulled up slow. Bodies lined the pier, twisted, burned, fresh. Some military gear, some not. I scanned the area. "Looks recent." "Too recent," Jada said, shotgun raised. We docked anyway. There wasn't a choice. The boy clung to my leg as we stepped off. Dumbo had become a graveyard. The cobblestone streets were littered with flipped food carts, burned bicycles, and blood streaks leading into alleys. A boutique shop had been blown open from the inside. Flies swarmed around what was left of someone inside, half-dressed in a uniform. Eli checked the alley. "Clear so far." I pointed toward Washington Street. "Let's head south." We cut through the back of Time Out Market. We can get to the bridge. We moved, quiet. Fast I stayed close to the boy, swinging my bat at anything that twitched. That's when we heard the banging. Thud dot thud. Thud dot it echoed from inside the market. We stopped. "Back door's chained," Jada whispered. "But something's in there." I peeked through the busted glass. Inside, maybe 20 zombies were slamming into a locked storage room door. Their backs to us, clothes ripped, hair missing in chunks. One of them had a chef's apron, stained in red, holding a broken knife like it was still trying to finish dinner. Eli checked his pockets. 2 flares left. "No," I said. "We don't waste them." I pointed at a rack of umbrellas near the door. Time for distractions. We each grabbed one. Jada counted down on her fingers. 3, 2, 1. Crash. I hurled the umbrella through the window. It smacked against a shelf, scattering metal trays. The zombies turned fast, faster than I remembered them ever moving. Their moans hit us like a wall of heat. We ran, let them out through the side. Jada tossed a glass bottle into a trash pile, drawing half the horde off course. But the chef, he was locked on me. I ducked under a fallen beam and swung the bat hard. Crack, right into his gut. Didn't even flinch. He grabbed my hoodie, pulling me close. I smelled teeth. BLAM. Jada blew his arm clean off. He fell, twitching. I stomped his head in before he could rise again. "Thanks," I said, panting. She nodded. "We need to check the room." Eli sprinted ahead, found a crowbar, and popped a chain off the storage door. Inside was a young woman, barely older than us, holding a fire extinguisher like a weapon. She looked terrified, alive, human. We froze. She raised a trembling hand. Are they gone? Jada stepped forward, soft voice. Yeah, you're safe now. The girl broke down. We let her cry. She told us her name was Maya. Said she'd been hiding since her brother got bit 2 days ago. I locked him out, she sobbed. I locked him out and he screamed for hours. I didn't know what to say, so I just looked at the boy next to me, still hugging his stuffed dog, and wondered how long any of us had left. Maya didn't want to leave. Said she had food stashed. Said she knew the alleys. Said we'd get killed the second we stepped outside. She might have been right. But staying meant waiting to die. We moved at dawn. JADA lead point with a shotgun. Eli had the crowbar in one hand, Maya in the other. I held the kid's hand tight, bat in my other grip, eyes sweeping the broken streets like a machine. My heart hadn't stopped pounding since we left Domino. The shadows were long in the early light. Everything looked like it could lurch, and then one did. A mangled man wearing a FedEx uniform stumbled from behind a wrecked moped, jaw hanging, one eye missing. I swung first. Whack, his skull crunched, but he didn't fall. He grabbed my arm. Eli ran in and buried the crowbar in the zombie's back. Now he fell. Jada pulled us into cover behind an abandoned coffee truck. Too loud. Too late, I said, pointing. Down the block, they emerged. 3.9. A wave. Some were fast. Some limped. But they all locked eyes. And they were hungry. Back, back. Eli shouted. We turned and ran. Maya screamed as one grabbed her hoodie. Jada blasted it off with a clean hip. We cut through a broken fence and bolted into an alley between two brick buildings. Garbage lined the path. Fire escapes creaked above us. Up, I yelled, pointing to the ladder. We hoisted the kid first, then Maya. I went up last, shoving the ladder off as I climbed. The zombies slammed into the walls below, clawing, growling, shaking the metal like it was paper. I looked at Jada rooftops. She asked. I nodded. We ran across tar paper roofs, jumping gaps that felt like chasms. Broken glass crunched under our sneakers. The air stank of burnt meat and mold. The kid tripped once, cut his hand on a nail, but didn't cry. He just bit his lip and kept going, braver than me. We stopped near the edge of the building. Below us, a junkyard, dozens of wrecked cars, and in the middle, a nest. A goddamn nest. Zombies were huddled, sleeping, if that's what you'd call it, tangled together like rotting snakes in a pit of metal. What the hell? Maya whispered. They pile together sometimes, Jada said. Body heat, hunger, maybe instinct. Looks like hell, Eli muttered. I looked for a way down and saw it. A tilted plank leading to a lower roof, which curved into the junkyard fence. Over there, I said, Dom. We moved quietly. Every step was a prayer. Halfway down the plank, I slipped, caught myself, but a rock fell from my shoe. Clink. It hit a car hood. They stirred. I held my breath. One lifted its head. A woman, half a scalp, eyes milky white. She sniffed and shrieked. The nest exploded. We ran. Down the roof, over the plank, through the fence. They followed fast. The junkyard turned into a death maze. Twisted metal, stacked vans, shattered windshields. We ducked through an old bus and slammed the door behind us. Hold it, I shouted. Eli wedged the crowbar through the door handles. Maya grabbed a fire extinguisher from the emergency kit and handed it to me. For what? Figure it out. The walls shook as the horde slammed against the bus. The kid screamed. Finally, loudly. and I knew we were out of time. I kicked open the back exit. Go, we sprinted. Jumped a pile of tires. Climbed a chain link fence with barbed wire tearing our clothes. My hoodie got stuck. I yanked. Flesh tore. Didn't stop. We landed in a backyard behind someone's old brownstone. Abandoned that door. We ran inside that empty. Dust and cobwebs. Eli collapsed against the wall. Maya vomited into the sink. Jada checked the windows. They're not coming. How do you know? I asked, chest heaving. She held up a broken power line dangling across the alley. They followed the wrong trail. We sat there, in silence. My hands were shaking so bad, I couldn't hold the bat. The boy curled up in the corner and finally slept. I watched him, wishing I could do the same, but I couldn't close my eyes, because I knew what came next. We were running out of time, out of supplies, out of luck, and the only place left was the bridge. The only way out of Brooklyn, and probably the worst. That was only the beginning. If you think Brooklyn was bad, wait until we hit the bridge. The dead ain't slowing down, and neither are we. More screams, more blood, more choices we can't take back. This city's a graveyard and the only way out is through hell. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's next in Zombie Chronicles, Brooklyn Part 2.